All right, then we are live. So thank you everybody for coming today for this Open Web Sandbox party dedicated to education. So today we're going to have a roundtable focused on education in Web3, and we're going to tackle this topic from many different perspectives with our guests. So let me introduce them to you. We have Sashi, Sharif, Ben, Jacob, and then Rasha, and Rasha, and I think Matthew. Sorry, it's a lot of names to, to remember, but and then we have Peter from Nearweek, we have Yassine from Curadao, and Basilia from Open Web Sandbox. So all of you are involved in very different projects. Near Education is focused on providing training opportunities to developers and entrepreneurs. Nearweek is the main source of spreading news for the Near ecosystem and is also producing accessible educational content that is facilitating usability of products that are being developed in the Near ecosystem. Curadao focuses on creating tools for creative minds that want to create artistic projects with creative coding. And lastly, we have Open Web Sandbox that is focusing on creating the best environment for newcomers to find their way into the Near ecosystem. So all these projects are very diverse, but ultimately they share the same goal, that is that of onboarding new people in the Near ecosystem and advancing its adoption. So to start the roundtable discussion, I will ask you to talk about your perspective on the need for education in Web3 and the initiatives that would be nice to have to further this goal, and in particular, how your initiative is contributing to it. So starting from Near University, so Near Education team.
Sure, yeah. I can speak on behalf of the Near Education team. My name is Sharif. I've been working on education at Near for a couple of years now. Joining me today are Shashi, who runs partnerships, Jacob, who is primarily responsible for most of the technical work that we have in place right now, including Stats Gallery and some other exciting projects that you'll see coming out soon, and Ben Sayeg, who has principally been responsible for supporting devs in their journey and is also developing courses as we speak. So Near Education is really focused on reaching as many human minds as we can possibly reach in the next 6 to 12 months. If we can get to 500,000, we'll win something, maybe a high five. If we can get more than that, then we'll be even happier. If along the way we can teach people how to learn faster, how to keep up with this bullet train that is technology, pulling away from all of us month by month and year by year, all the better. If we can help people break through their limiting beliefs, introduce people to technology that never thought they would learn how to spell HTML, that would be incredible. But our intention is to introduce the world to Web3 and the open web and to foster an age of innovation, the likes of which we haven't seen.
Okay, perfect. Then maybe we can move to Peter from Nearweek. Maybe you can say something about how Nearweek relates to education on Web3.
So, yeah, for sure. So I think starting out with the news perspective that was our initial project, I quickly realized that it's really difficult for a lot of people to understand what Web3 is about. And also coming to a new ecosystem, it can be difficult to actually find out how to engage with it. So we really started focusing on how we can provide guides, educational content to help people actually start using products. So that works in two ways. We both write our own guides, and then we work with what we think are the most promising projects in the ecosystem to help them actively engage with the community. And lately, we've been also engaging more and more with an IT university here in Copenhagen that we are looking into how can we facilitate a connection with the near university team, and in that way actually start to get more of an educational hub here in Scandinavia, I see a huge potential here, right? So in that sense, we're really trying to amplify what the NEAR ecosystem and the educational team is doing, and really spreading the words on everything NEAR, and trying to establish this infrastructure that we need to gain mass adoption, right?
Yeah. Yeah, actually here, like I see like a straightforward connection with also what Near Education is doing with launching like regional hubs for education. Maybe it would be interesting to know a little bit more about the idea behind launching regional hubs to foster education. Why are you doing that basically? What are the advantages of doing that?
Shashi, would you take that? Would you feel comfortable taking that one?
Sure. I feel the promise that we are promising everyone for Web3 is how do you decentralize, and the vision of Near Foundation is how do you dissolve into the community over 5 years, right? That means everything that is in Near Foundation will be dissolved over a period of 5 years. One of the things that Sharif has experimented in past 6 to 8 months with Near Hispano is how does hubs in a specific geography work if they are supported enough to launch an entire education program, which what essentially it means is, I'm not talking about like everything that you see right now in your university. Imagine an entire all of those programs and a couple of more new innovative programs that these hubs come up for with, which is suitable for the region. Start doing that in the region. So imagine instead of having a central entity, which is anti what we all stand for, there are decentralized hubs with shared vision and goal, and that's only the thing that is common. And they have their localized content, the way they are approaching it, their own timelines of courses, and everything that they are trying to build. And what it entails is when we talk about education in near, uh, it entails is right from onboarding someone to spell what blockchain means to uh, not only build a smart contract, but even to contribute full-fledged in their professional capacity, either as an entrepreneur or either as what you call a professional into Web3. And we have a couple of examples here. Right now, one of the best example that we have right now that I see on the screen is Jacob. He came as a NEO certified developer. So Jacob, I would like you to share your journey around how this education piece turns into a full-fledged career in Web3. Obviously, he has been in the blockchain space before, but your journey with blockchain and everything will really make sense. Just to summarize everything that I said, so the idea of these hubs are imagine in different parts of the world, which and it will be synchronizing with the regional hubs that NEAR has. There is an education vertical in there, focusing completely on everything education. That's as simple as that. Run by an entrepreneur, a group of entrepreneurs, like a company, and that's how it works. I would like to invite Jacob if to share his experience with education and becoming a professional in your ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my journey to started with, well, my first exposure to NEAR was with the pilot program of the NEAR Certified Developer Program, which is something that the NEAR education team facilitates. So how that worked is, well, initially I had never heard of NEAR before, and I joined the NEAR Certified Developer Program on recommendation from one of my friends in the blockchain space. When I first joined the program, I had only experience developing on Ethereum before, and the way that the NEAR Certified Developer Program presented development on NEAR was very friendly to someone who only really had experience in Web 2 before. So I had a Web 2 background. I primarily a web developer. That was most of my history. And I had started to experiment with development on the Ethereum platform, but being presented NEAR from this Web 2 perspective, it was very friendly, totally at my level. and I was able to really understand all of the concepts in a way that was really friendly to me. And it was just being able to write smart contracts in a language that I was familiar with, using concepts that I already had familiarity with from the Web 2 background. That was just amazing to me. So I took the Near Certified Developer program, and from there, I really fell in love with the Near ecosystem. So I started contributing. I started reaching out to the Near community and seeing where people needed help. And I contributed a little bit to the AssemblyScript SDK, and really just got more and more integrated. And eventually, that led into me applying for a job with Near Foundation, and the rest is history.
Yeah, awesome. I would like to transition now for a little bit to Yassin, because it provides like a different perspective on that. He joined the Near ecosystem with the idea of, starting his creative coding project, but then he realized that there are certain resources that are missing, and he transitioned this project into more of an educational project, or creating the tools for artists to get on board. So I'd like to hear your experience in this.
Cool. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Yassin. I first got in touch with Near shortly after Near launched on mainnet, so it's been more than a year. And I also got into the education program as one of the first batches with Sharif. I started pretty much by myself because I wanted to bring a project that I was doing on Ethereum on Near, because it made more sense, and it was like a creative coding project. So the idea of like putting the code for the art inside the contract, which is something that was already happening on Ethereum, but I didn't see much happening on Near. And I worked on that for a while. And while I was working on it, I kind of had a bunch of ideas on how to make it into a project that would allow also others to pick up some of the stuff that I was building and use it themselves. So I started building, like, I come from like years of doing front end, like 5 years of doing front end. So I started by building like a library of components that users could or artists could like use to put together their own layouts and hooks to kind of connect to the Near API.js. I started writing the smart contracts also in AssemblyScript for the NFT. So I ended up implementing a bit of a proof of concept of that, and then also thanks to the education team, I was able to kind of involve some more people in helping me out with this. And on the educational side, I would say that lately my contribution to education has been that I got Ashin and Ashraf involved with me, that have been helping me full time, and they're like Web 2 devs, and I worked next to them in the last month to pretty much support them in understanding how to write AssemblyScript smart contracts and how what I was building worked and how to move it to the next step. And after adding their support, I started integrating more things like GraphQL, and we started lately working with Workspace.js, which is sandbox testing, and we're still doing things on testnet, but we kind of have a solid foundation to start bringing some of these ideas we have to as mainnet projects. But yeah.
Great. So I was wondering, like, since is a space that is constantly evolving, like, what are the challenges for educators to actually create courses and to constantly update them? So what are the daily challenges that you have, and also from the perspective of those that are going through education?
I can take that, and then maybe I'll ask Ben and Jacob to touch base on this a little bit, and Shashi as well, to maybe talk about the courses that each one of them has either produced in the past or is currently working on or maintaining. In general, when you talk about making a course, the way that we talk about themes in education and the movements in education are fundamentally influenced by the way society structures itself and thinks about the way we organize complex systems. I'm not trying to be, sound smart. I'm suggesting that the reason that we think about education today as a process which needs inputs and outputs and mimics the industrial process is because we're in the tail end of the Industrial Revolution. And if you look back a couple of hundred years ago at books and education, and the way mathematical books were written, at the way children were taught, there was more a component around storytelling. Things were a little bit less industrial. And if you look throughout history of the last several hundred years of education and the resources, the way they're structured, they tend to mimic the way society organizes itself. Today, we are in a new way of engaging and thinking about ourselves, one another, about the materials around us. The content is now commoditized. I can go and find lectures from award-winning, household names in the space of computer science. Let's say some of the greatest thinkers from the 1980s at MIT. Like Jerry Sussman giving a lecture, 1983 or 84 or something like that on SICP, Structure and Interpretation of Computer Programming. Famous book, famous professor in one of his seminal lectures. I can watch that today on YouTube if you like. So in a world like this, what is education? What is a course in the end? It's any arbitrarily curated sequence of content. And then who is curating? And who is sequencing? Those are the two questions we have to ask about every course. Is the curation biased? Is the curation spread among a large population of mental models? If we, the 10 of us on this call, decided to curate the greatest introduction to public speaking or whatever, what would we come up with? And then if we wanted to sequence that content, the sequencing, I suggest, should come from a single human mind. Each one of us would come up with a different sequence. And the benefit there is that the wisdom of the crowd curates the best. But one human mind creates a sensible, logical flow. Although both are arbitrary, to be clear. There's no one right course. That is what's missing. That, I would argue, is what's missing in the way we think about education today. We're still stuck in the mindset of scarcity. Someone has the answer. I'll go to them. But in fact, we all have the answer. So I'd like to invite, just in the order of the courses that they worked on and delivered, Jacob, and then Shashi, and then Ben, to share a little bit about what is course development for you. What's your experience been like? Jacob, I know you've made several courses, even outside of our team, before, so feel free to include any of your previous experiences as well for context.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I work with another educational nonprofit in my spare time, and through them I have developed a number of courses as well. When I think of creating a course, I know my perspective on learning is I tend to be very hands-on, and I like to kind of almost stumble my way through figuring something out. So when I want to learn a new technology or something, I'll approach it and say, what am I going to use this technology for? Or what am I going to use this thing for? Doesn't even necessarily have to be technology. And then I'll typically try and just stumble my way through it without looking at any instructions. And once I dig a deep enough hole that I can't get out of, then I'll actually look at the documentation or the instructions. Typically, when it comes to like writing software, that's a perfectly feasible way to go about doing things, because typically you don't dig holes that you can't dig yourself back out of with documentation. So when I create educational content, I kind of approach it from that perspective. I say, all right, I'll take what knowledge I already have and see if I can apply it in this new context, see how far that gets me. And once I reach a new paradigm that my knowledge is insufficient to unravel, that's when we introduce the new concepts. We'll say, okay, we've reached this unscalable wall with the current equipment. Now let's add some new equipment. So whether that takes it's kind of like if you were to write some software that solves a problem in a particularly inefficient manner, just so that you can prove that you can solve the problem, and then go and study some new techniques that allow you to solve the problem in a more efficient manner. That's one example of my approach to educational content production. Um, Hopefully that is enlightening in some way. I also like to approach it from a very conversational perspective as well. So I don't want to just present the cold hard facts. I want to make it a conversational style. I make it engaging, as opposed to a reference. Ben, or I believe Ben's next.
I believe Shashi is next.
Oh, sorry, Shashi then.
Okay, I can go. See, for me, I think everything stems to, as an instructor, the philosophy of education that you believe in. Uh, my my journey with education, like educating education, started probably as a child when I was trying to teach myself fix my video game. That's the earliest that I can remember. And because I wanted to play Super Mario and it is not functioning right now, God knows what has happened to it and how do I fix it? And obviously, I end up breaking the thing and then probably figuring it out. Okay, this was the problem, and probably this might work. So I have been a tinkerer, and one of the key things that comes with the tinkering attitude is you jump into what Jacob was telling you. Jump, dig enough big hole, and then figure out. Okay, let's see if there is a manual. And uh, and I'm of those league where people don't like to look at manuals. So the philosophy of education, and then fast forward a couple of years, or at least one and a half decades when I started teaching. uh, there are two major philosophies that I feel is when once you believe that the learner doesn't know anything, or whatever they know is not worth, and you need to put something there. And second is the learner already know, and there are multiple learners in the room. How do we see what is in the room and try to build something out of it? And I believe in the second one, where I believe everybody has something, and I don't think there is enough knowledge that I can add to it. But as an instructor, what I can do is try to help them navigate through the confusion that is there. That's all I do in my instruction, at least. So recently launched a pilot. I have run a couple of entrepreneurial hackathons, accelerators, and all of those, and multiple classes on different things. But with Near Education, I launched something called as Near Certified Instructor, which is kind of an incubation come accelerator program. And the first thing that I remember, and Vasilia was there on that course, so she will know what I'm talking about. Is that I don't have any content for you. I just have a framework where you can judge where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, and then obviously I realized that people will go bonkers. Like what have I come here for? I thought I will learn something, and to make ensure that not everybody end up running away from the course, I put something that is very simple, nothing like a content which took half an hour to put it, just to keep the sanity in the room. But actually, it was nothing. And slowly, the course went into where people, after a point, were put into a group and they started figuring out on their own. Until date, like after some initial content that I have given, I have not given them anything. Now the course, there are 40 people, 40 enterprises in the journey right now, and I'm not spending more than even 15 minutes in a day now on that course. Everybody is learning on their own, supporting, and that's where what I feel is defines actually. The question is, do we actually need a content? There's enough content already there. So actually, I think there's no need to create content. We're just wasting our time creating content. That's my summary for this. People can learn on their own to sharing knowledge and all of that. We just need to facilitate that. Ben?
before you dig in, point of order, I posted about 6 responses to comments to questions. I'm not sure if anybody
Sorry, like there
helped with that, but
technology is
Sorry if you-
either if you could let me comment directly or repost either one of those, I think, because there's several questions unaddressed and several responses unshared. Either one would be fine.
Yeah, I think it would be good if we would have it like more conversational kind of discussion, so that like we can jump in from one question to the other, and just so that everybody should feel free to just jump in at any moment if they have a question or anything.
Wait, I feel like you may have misunderstood me. I'm sorry. I am typing out responses to questions in the comment chat because I can't chat directly. Can someone repost, or could you tell me how to get to the comments?
Sure. I will repost them. Yeah.
Ben, can you tell us a little bit about how you think about courses?
Yes, I can. I think a lot of what Shashi and you, Sharif, and Jacob said resonate. Before I taught in the programming space, I used to teach film and theater, and so these are very different. You know, teaching someone how to use a camera or how to feel an emotion is much different than teaching them about programming concepts. So that was a big shift, a lot of different mental models. So coming into the blockchain space has been more experimentation, with the core of it being a dialogue, because each student's different. Each student has different needs. And if you look at the way students, the students have various levels of programming experience in these classes. Most have a few years of experience. And then there's people that are very advanced and people that, like Sharif mentioned, don't know how to spell HTML. And so we're trying to target these different levels, these different groups, and cater content to their needs. What's confusing them? That's been really hard. What is confusing people? What is confusing everyone in the community? So a lot of my experimentation is trying to capture that so I can inform lesson plans. But I think that part of these experiments are trying to get people to be comfortable with their confusion, and because that can block any chance of like learning new concepts. So we're trying to have these conversations with them, and to where we kind of understand what's confusing them and help them kind of reestablish their relationship with that confusion, because they're going to be more confused as a space. We're in the Wild West. There's not a lot of infrastructure here, and things change weekly, and so you have to keep up with it, and so you have to be comfortable with just not knowing what the hell's going on. And so I think that's one of the objectives with any content that we're creating. The one what I do with my friends, I try to talk about this stuff, try to educate people on Web3, and so those are just conversations I try to capture as well. And that's been informing this new course I've been working on called for Near for non-programmers. So it's really just a conversation that just walks people that have zero programming experience and just kind of want to understand ideas of identity, governance, ownership in the Web3 space. So it kind of starts with like, okay, stuff that they already know about, concepts like their computer, their house, and then taking those and building upon on those ideas and seeing how Web3 utilizes the same common ideas, the same stuff that we already know. It's not some magical mystery that came from the beyond. It's just a natural progression of technology building upon ideas that have been that we use and are familiar with already. So I guess to sum up, one of the things I've been working on is the idea of bringing intensity, credibility, and enthusiasm into the classroom. I think those kind of they help us break the tedium that can come from having 6-hour Zoom calls. So it puts a lot of, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of mental strength for the teacher. And that's something I'm kind of working on myself. I think that ultimately with that, we're just really trying to see the needs of the students and essentially just have a dialogue. and just help them see what terms they're familiar with, what frame of reference that would help them kind of understand things, have things click for them, and then we kind of go. I kind of like use my instincts and go in that direction. And some things work, a lot of things don't, but that's what we're here for. You know.
Ben, can you say a couple of words about the course that you're developing? I mean, if you just kind of keep it to like maybe 30 seconds, like just give us the soundbite of the course that you're working on now. The one you're about to launch.
It's called Near and Far from Any Coding. So I don't want to like turn people, non-coders away. I want to be able, a lot of my friends are filmmakers and not programming at all, but they want to make content and somehow put it on the blockchain, but it's very mysterious. So I had this like kind of 5-chapter course that just talks about your relationship with your computer, your relationship to the internet, the modern web, Web3, and then finally Near. So at the end of it, a layman will be able to describe and articulate blockchain concepts, and also not necessarily be able to write code, but be able to read a contract and kind of get a gist of what's going on in there. And I think that will kind of level them up and prepare them for any NCD courses that they take after that. Any questions?
So actually, I have some questions. Like after I heard all these, it sounds that what you're developing right now is very much like fluid. It's something that it changes depending on what's in front of you, and the people are kind of, they come first somehow. So you tailor your course depending on what's more effective for the people that you have in front of you. I was wondering though, doesn't it take like a certain kind of personality to embark on something like that? Is it really like open to everyone, or is it also something that creates some barriers for people? Like not the tailored approach, but more the approach of you have to figure things out by yourself kind of thing, because it's something that both Shashi and Jacob stressed a lot. So I was wondering, do you see that as a point of strength because you want to kind of filter out those that are really motivated to embark on this educational program, or is it, is it intended, let's say, to make it a bit more difficult, or does it take like a certain personality to do it?
I think it always takes grit and to take on any new technology, any new path, anything you don't know anything about, whether it's picking up a new instrument. You need grit and determinism. Otherwise, you won't succeed as well as you probably would want to. And that goes for and that's just a universal thing. And that's as far as I believe. So I'm not trying to filter things out. I'm trying to break open the gates as wide as possible and be like, come into this network. There's something for everybody. Ideally, if a billion people, they're not all going to have the same objectives and determinism, but we still want to invite them into the space and the network. So I definitely don't want to gatekeep anything. I want to actually do the opposite. But on the other thing, for the individual, they're going to have to, regardless of it, learning something new, they're going to have to stick to it in order to succeed.
Maybe to clarify a little bit about my perspective that I was talking about before. When I say like we're trying to just find these unscalable walls, the idea is not to scare people away, but rather when you approach a wall that with the tools that you currently have is unscalable, that's when we say, all right, we found an area for growth. Right. And that's what we're all about. We're all about finding areas for growth, finding these opportunities where we can help people to become better. Right. I'm not trying to say, oh, you have to be able to forge your own path. No, I'm saying I'm here to help you whenever you need the help. Right. So if you can forge your own path, and you already have all the knowledge and skills that you need, great. like I'll fade into the background, you do you. But as soon as you want the help, if you need the help, I'm here for you. And it's like an exploratory type of learning paradigm, if that makes sense, rather than one that says, oh, only the most competent are the ones we're allowing. No, it's we're here to support everyone wherever they're starting at.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to move on to another question, but I'm also happy to elaborate a little bit on that one too.
Yeah, please.
So you heard from Ben about really access to everybody, right? Everybody belongs, and that's a core part of the way we think about education on the education team at your foundation. You heard Jacob talk about just-in-time support. So if you do the work, I'll do the work. I'll meet you where you need me. And then I would like to kind of move the bar a little bit further and say that by design, the NCD program has been a hurdle. It has been set up to filter for people like Yassine, who showed up and in just a few days learned enough to build a compelling, interesting, beautiful, meaningful demonstration. And then from that demonstration, go on to build, I don't know how many businesses now Yassine, with grants and developers and other activities. He's, like a rocket ship. If the NCD program was designed to make it easy for everybody to learn, then we would have been spending most of our time in the last year not funding projects built by entrepreneurs like Yassine, but answering questions about, wait, how exactly do I spell HTML? Because we all have those questions while we're learning. And we all forget because it's natural and it's perfectly human. So in order to build up a critical mass of people like Yassine and Jacob and Ben, who have all come through the NCD program, what we created was a small jungle with a finish line on one side and an entry point on the other. And we just stood at the finish line. Anybody that made it through, we said, welcome. What do you need? Fellowship, grant, employment, this way. And anybody that got lost in the jungle, we begged their forgiveness. And now in 22, we're about to switch on the paved paths, the park benches, the exercise gyms, and all the things you would expect to see in this jungle if it was not a jungle, but a suburban park, that's child safe and accessible to people who may be, physically challenged, for example, with a wheelchair or have some kind of, on crutches or something like this, right? But that was not something sustainable a year ago because the team was too small. Now we have a team that is sizable enough with enough talent and enough diversity and systems and support from the NEAR Foundation to be able to, welcome the next million developers who come to learn with us. Half of whom, by the way, have a year or less of software development experience. Maybe 30% of them have no software development experience of the thousands of people that have applied to the programs right now at NEAR University.
Yeah, the way I think about education with Quora, which I think about sometimes, it's that our open source is a bit education, in the sense that the way I learned about NEAR and how to do things, and besides going to the NCD program, it was also just the documentation was well written, and you could go and read the NEAR SDK assembly script repository and just go through the files and actually read a bunch of comments that explain to you what that class does or what that file has in it. And the way we're doing it with Quora is a bit similar. I think we're trying to write the contracts and make sure that you can generate a type doc of the contracts, and it explains all the contracts, and it's well written, and you can figure out what's happening and document the subgraph and show you how the subgraph and how we did it. So always kind of accompany put our learning while we're doing this thing, put it down in these files. So if someone comes and starts to read our repositories, you can actually figure out what's happening. And yeah, but I really like how the near Denomicon is, and how the near website is, in the sense that it lets you like figure things out by yourself and really go in the repositories and like try them out and see, okay, here's how I do this, here's how I do that, and most of the times if you go and read in the files, you find your answer. Which is sometimes, I understand it's a different approach than you want to teach someone how to go from 0 to 1. It's more like, let me figure it out. But yeah, that's the way we're doing it. I'll say, if we want to say we're integrating some education, to put some education on Quora. Yeah.
Okay. So before, Sharif, you mentioned like these new projects for 2022, basically of changing a little bit, so to make it more inclusive, even for people that were left a bit behind. And I was wondering, what, in your opinion, like the opinion of all of you, are the educational initiatives that are needed, are still needed, or the kind of content that might be needed for continuing this wave of education and helping people to get on board with?
Sharif, before you begin, Ariana, one thing that I would like to highlight here is I think the word inclusiveness doesn't fit in that way. Like, I think our education system is still inclusive. What we have to understand is if you have read ecological succession, basically how life forms form on planet. Uh, you don't see those canopy trees in the beginning. What you see is something like a lichen that grows on a stone, and and that's the only type of species the environment can support at that point of time. It is still inclusive because that's the only thing that exists. And then comes the shrubs, the herbs, God knows what, and then you have the entire canopy of a rainforest. What I'm trying to say is, because when we use words like to make it more inclusive, it seems like it was not inclusive before. But what it is, the critical mass or the people that we have available in the ecosystem at that one time who can survive that type of environment are included into it. See, like the simple concepts of what we talk about in marketing, early adopters versus people who come in the system. I just wanted to, sorry to correct you. It sounds like I'm correcting you, but because that sends a slightly different message. Sri,
No,
please
I
continue.
agree that probably accessible was the more appropriate word there than inclusive.
And if I may add a quick comment here, actually speaking from experience with the Open Web Sandbox, we had the period of time where we really tried to make everything we offer, like everything we're doing for the ecosystem, as accessible as possible. And we were almost running behind the people trying to explain things and be like, hey, here are all the events, here's all the information. It doesn't work. If people are not motivated enough initially, you can have all the options out there. If they don't want them, they're not going to take them. So it makes more sense from the resource perspective to actually make the bar a bit, set the bar a bit higher, and then you as a result, you will get people who are actually really motivated, like they will filter them out. So it's a easy yet brilliant thing to do, in my opinion.
I also just want to add on top of this that we're really just getting started. You know, in the last 150 days, we've spent $1.7 million on 47 projects across 15 countries. Excuse me. These are grants that we've distributed. A third of those are, they're all education projects. A third of those are outreach partners with audiences that they are inviting by creating a custom course on existing platforms that are in various languages. Hopefully we'll hit the top 25 by the end of the year, but I've been told that's too many. Let's stay maybe top 10 languages. I'm pushing for that 25 number. I want to see 25 languages, but maybe we'll only get to 10. We're already at 7 or 8, I think. English, Turkish, Arabic, Spanish, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, maybe almost 10. We're getting there. And this is just a third of the allocation. There is another third of that 1.7 million, which are content-based projects, mobile applications, new kinds of courses, new ways of learning, different takes. Is it Rust or is it assembly script or is it JavaScript? Courses for entrepreneurs, courses for developers, and so on. And then about a third of those projects are exploratory projects. I can tell you about a grant that we issued for a children's book to tell stories about identity, money, and ownership to children through cartoons. And another grant that we issued to build a collection of stamps called Stamps of Our Times to represent timestamps, significant timestamps in the history of Web3, as physical stamps actually, but commissioned by a dozen artists around the world. And yet another one, which is a sculpture of centralized, distributed, and decentralized networks that you can play with because there are metal balls etched into the side of the sculpture that you can use like a little puzzle to try and get them from one end of the network to the other, moving in this kind of maze. So from outreach and marketing to content and different form factors, all the way to exploratory projects that kind of delight the imagination, we're reaching out to anybody that you can possibly imagine, including a 1,000 teachers program, near.university/teach, where anybody with teaching experience is welcome to come and apply for a grant, a fellowship as a teacher in residence, or even join the core team as an instructor. And it's not just technical teachers. We're talking about teachers of the liberal arts, teachers of the humanities. What we need today in 2022 are 1 million engineers and 1 million philosophers and historians and poets and artists, because the engineers are going to make something work. But what are they going to make work if the philosophers don't give us a sense of what the next 10, 20 years should be? So hopefully that gives you a sense of kind of how broadly we're spreading this red carpet that we hope is going to be inviting to these 1,000 teachers, 1 million developers, 1 billion users that we'll reach.
Yeah, I think it's very important to make a bridge between, all the people that are developers and into the tech, and also the other people that are going to use it, because they also need to enter this world to support it. So diversifying education for different kinds of people and targets is very important. And maybe now it's the time for Vasilia to introduce some of the Open Web Sandbox initiatives regarding education.
Yes, thank you. Up until this month, up until February, I'm just briefly going to go over what Open Web Sandbox does. We are a digital hub, a platform that links individual contributors from all over the world with different opportunities within the ecosystem, different collaboration opportunities. So, for example, if projects within the NEAR ecosystem need certain help, we are linking them with a contributor who is capable to perform the task and reward him for that. So we're onboarding people into the ecosystem through collaborating opportunities, I would say. And up until February, we were only educating people, all the newcomers, on the subject of projects. So we were only introducing them the NEAR ecosystem from the side of various projects that are building on top of NEAR protocol. But as we've noticed, a huge influx of people from all over the world with different backgrounds, different knowledge base, different expectations as well, to our platform, we realize that a lot of people come to us and this is their first touch point with the NEAR ecosystem. We realize that we need something explaining all those people all the basics about the NEAR ecosystem and blockchain technology in general. So that's how the idea of Open Web Sandbox Education was born. And as of February, our team is going to launch monthly a batch of videos and a batch of articles, short articles, on different subjects from the NEAR ecosystem and the Web3 in general. For example, the first release of February was about Open Web Sandbox basics, about how we work, how you can join us, what are communities in the NEAR ecosystem, how you can join those, what can you do with us. And yeah, I'm going to share the links in the comments now, and you are very welcome to check them all out. This is explaining you the very, very basics of everything, and we will continue doing so every month with our team. For now, on the planning topics like Web3, decentralization, DeFi, NFTs, we're going to break it down into very, very small blocks for all you guys to make sure it's as accessible as possible. And it's up to you to make use of those. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Vasilia, for sharing that. So I think we might have reached the end of this conversation for today. It was great having you here, and it was great to hear all these perspectives from people that went through education through the programs of Near University, and also to hear what the perspectives are from the inside of Near Education, and to hear that there is a lot coming in the next month, and it's very exciting. So thank you again for coming, and hope we'll have these conversations again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Okay. I've sent the links in the private chat. I'm not sure. Because every time I try to log in, I would get kicked out. So I'm not sure if we can still transfer them to the main chat.
That's quite weird, because usually people are able to write comments directly. So I don't know why it didn't work today.
I'm not sure. That was strange. But in general, I think it went really, really well. Like, I think we had a decent conversation with everyone. I felt very humbled because people were discussing very important educational things. And I was like, so, it's short videos. What about those? No,
yeah,
but I think it went well.
I didn't understand that there were going to be so many people from Near Education. So I was like,
no, either.
Wow.
They've totally dominated the space.
Yeah, so I felt a bit sorry for Yassine and for Peter, because we didn't talk about them that much. They just introduced basically what they were up to. So yeah, if I had known, we would have called just them, like people from Near Education.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, actually. So not sure why that happened. But I mean, the conversation itself was pretty fruitful indeed. Yes, set for Peter and Yassine, but I'm sure we can have some other event involved.